Okay, so I'm going to run through this real quick. I have Octoprint installed. This is Octopi.18, the newest one, and I have upgraded to the newest version of Octoprint, which currently is 1.6.1, I believe. Everything's up to date, and I ran through the wizard, but nothing else has been done. So this is how you can get a Picam and a USB cam working with the Multicam plugin. So first, let's just install that Multicam plugin. Plugin Manager, get more. And we'll install Multicam. While that's installing, all the commands for this are in these docs. I'll leave links to these docs, but I will also put the history of the commands that we run in this video in a file and leave it in the description. So the plugin is installed. Restart now. Then we're going to need to open up Putty as soon as it comes back up. And we're going to SSH into the IP. We'll open up. Okay, so there's no need to do sudo apt update or upgrade or anything like that. I do have the Picam plugged in with the ribbon cable on the board. That's all you should have to do to be able to use it, but getting it in the multicam is a little tricky. So let's just start out with an ls/dev, and let's do /video asterisk. That'll show us everything named video. You can see all these other ones. Don't worry about any of these. These are for multiple streams. The newer versions of Linux, Raspbian do these things just a little bit different. Don't worry about any of these. 10 through 16 are the default. The video 0 is what it called the Picam. Nowadays, the Picam is considered a USB cam because the whole Pi interface thing as a device, it really didn't work all that well. So video 0 is currently what the Picam is. And you can verify that. Just do a quick cat var log messages, and you can see right here it called in video 0 for the Picam. You can't tell it's the Picam, but it is. That's the only one we have plugged in. And if you jump back to the GUI, my cameras are just hanging, by the way. There's the Picam. It's actually hanging upside down off the Pi. It looks at a Prusa printer. But so that's Picam. So we're good there, but we still need to be able to use it in the multicam. So you really need to name it something. So let's jump back to Putty, and we are going to create an entry in our USB rules file. Again, all of this is in these docs. So before we do that, we're going to do a udev admin command. This guy right here. Again, I'll leave links for this. And we're just going to get some information about that Picam. There's not much there. So we did this dev video 0. That's our Picam. You can see here it's not giving us much, but it's enough that we can build our file. So we are going to change directory into etc udev rules.d. And if you take a look in there, we are going to edit and create a new USB rules file. So 99-usb.rules. And I forgot to do the nano. There we go. So if you have multiple printers, you probably have entries in here. I'm not going to do the printer part. You probably already have all that. If you run that script, that'll get it installed. We're just going to do the cameras. So we need these video for Linux lines, and I'm going to do 2. We'll paste them in here. And in Putty, you can scroll back and get the information even though you're in a file. The only attribute we really have is it called it cam0. So that's all we're going to use. Remember, it's an ATTR, not an ATTRS. So I'm just going to delete most of this stuff for line 1. ATTR, we're just going to take the S off of it. ID vendor, we're just going to call it name, like you saw in the output. And it is called camera 0. We can delete the rest until we get down to the symlink. Then we need to call it something. So I am going to call it Picam. Remember, these are case sensitive. Remember what you called it. Now this next one, we'll leave it here for now. That's going to be for our USB cam, but we're going to update that in a second. So we're going to Control X, Y, enter to save, and let's go ahead and sudo reboot so I can show you what it's going to be like when we reboot. And now that we've got that installed, we've put that in the rules file. Just do ls/dev. You can take a look at all the devices. Here is Picam. So it's taken that video 0 and called it something else. Now we can use it. So now you can do this a couple of different ways: forward, backward, install the cams first, do the config first, whatever. This time we're going to do the cams first. So now that we have Picam under control, I'm going to plug in the USB cam. Okay, now the USB cam and the Picam are plugged in. Let's go ahead and do an ls dev again, and we'll just look at video, asterisk. Now you can see we have 0, 1, 10, and then we have a 2. That's because it supports multiple streams, like I told you before. We're only worried about the first one. So video 1 is our USB cam. If it pulls in multiples, it's almost always going to be the first one. Again, you can cat that log to verify. Cat /var/log/messages. We're going to need this info anyway. And here is our USB cam. And you can verify these attributes and serial numbers. We need the vendor ID, product, serial number, but you can use this udevadmin command. If you do video 1 now, it's going to give you all this information, and you can match it up for what you saw in the log. All these attributes are going to be in here if you need to see them, like product ID and vendor right there. So that's how you can pair those up if you need to, but it's almost always the first device that shows up. So now that we have that info, we need to edit our USB rules file one more time. And we're just going to update this line that I pasted in here before, because I use Logitech all the time. ID vendor and ID product usually stays the same. So 46 dog 825 will update our serial number. So you can scroll back up. Make sure that product ID and vendor are the same. They are. And here's your serial. If your camera doesn't have a serial, you can, hopefully it will be from a different vendor and they won't be the same ID and product vendor the same. Hopefully they'll be different. And we also, to make this thing a little bit more consistent over reboots, we want to add an attr attribute, curly bracket, index, curly bracket, equals 0, comma. I show that in one of these examples. And we need to fix that up a little bit. It's actually 2 equals, and it has to be in quotes. This will help it stay on the original stream. It won't go to alternate streams. That can be really handy across reboots. And we need to update our symlink here to something that we know. Let's just call it Prusa-cam, because it's hanging around the Prusa somewhere. So we'll remember that when we build our files. So now the cameras are all set up and they're going to be named. We don't need to reboot quite yet, but let's go ahead and save this. Control X, Y, enter to save. Now we need to get the services set up for both cams. So we're going to jump into systemd /system. Then we are going to copy our current webcam service into a new one called webcam service 2. and then we are going to edit that sudo nano webcam2.service, and you don't need to update anything except where it says webcam in here, just call them 2. We're going to change the logs to 2, and then our root bin webcam2 file, we're going to change that. That's where it starts, and we're going to update that here in a second. So Control X, Y, enter save. Then we need to go over to root bin and create that file I just mentioned. We're going to copy the current one into one called 2. Then we need to edit that, sudo nano webcam2. And here's where the tricky edits come in. So this is the second one. We're also going to have to edit the first one a little bit, but let's start with the second one. So we need to add a port for our second one because they can't be on the same one, -P. The rest of it can stay in there. We're good with auto because we're going to actually alter this file a bit. Hey, actually, let's save this real quick, and we're going to add in a -L so we can see line numbers. So I can show you this a little easier. There you go. And we need to go down to somewhere around 167, I think. It's in the doc. Let's make sure. 167. So video 0, remember this is the webcam D2 file. We called that one Picam. So update that there. Then we need to go down to 265. And we're going to take off video underscore here. So it doesn't randomly grab a device, it grabs the one we just assigned it. So make that from video underscore device to just device on 265. And we should be good on that one. So let's go ahead and Control X, Y, enter to save. We need to fix up the standard webcam D file, do the same kinds of things. You don't need to update the port because it's fine on 8080, the default one. We have to go down to 167. And then this is going to be your Picam. I do highly recommend you start with the Picam before you add the USB cam. It seems less confusing to me. The renaming the Picam to another device doesn't seem to work so well. Leave it on video 0 if you can. So 167 Picam, then down to 265, was it? Yep. Again, take video underscore off. Control X, Y, enter to save. Now we need to enable the service files that we created. This is the default one. You wouldn't necessarily have to run this, but it never hurts. So we're going to do an enable. That makes sure that it's enabled and it goes through reboots. And we'll do the same thing to 2. That adds it in. Make sure it's going to be reboot. And then you can do, instead of enable, you can do start to go ahead and start those. We're going to reboot anyway, so it doesn't really matter, but we'll start them. Now we need to set up HA proxy so that when you go to those URLs, they will be on the correct cameras. So we'll change directory, and then we're going to sudo nano haproxy.cfg. We need to create a front-end public to go to the new backend. I know all this doesn't make a whole lot of sense all the time, but it gets the job done. So this is the standard front-end entry. We're just going to highlight and copy it. We'll paste it underneath. And we need that one to use webcam 2 backend right there. So update that. And then the path that we're going to access it is webcam 2. Now, lower down here, we have to create the second backend. So right underneath the initial backend, we're just going to copy the initial one. And we're going to right-click and paste it underneath. I do like to leave a space so it's easier to read. We're going to name this backend webcam2. We are going to access it right here with a /webcam2, so update that. Leave this webcam server, leave that 1. It has to be 1. You don't want to update that. It's 1 for all of them. That's just what it calls it when it starts the server. And we have to update the port to the port that we used in that bin file. I think webcamd in root bin. So for the second one, we used 8081. You can't have two cameras on the same port, so that will separate them out. So there's HA proxy. Control X, Y, enter to save. And I think we're about done. We are. So one more reboot. Sudo reboot. When the Pi comes back up, we can head back over to the web interface. You have your default Picam here. You have your multicam buttons down here, but we haven't set up multicam really. So we'll go to settings. Scroll down multicam. You can leave this one default because it's running, but we're going to hit plus to add another camera. You have to use the IP or the DNS of your Pi. So 192.168.1.183. And then just use this same entry up here, but we have to call it webcam2 because that's what we have it in the proxy file. So /webcam2 /question action equals stream. And we'll hit save. And you have two buttons now. So there's our default Picam. There's our default webcam. I have no idea what it's even pointing at. It looks like the lights. Oh, there's an SK-Go over there. But I just have it laying on the shelf. So now you have two cams. You can use this for your endoscope cam, whatever you want. But this is the process if you'd like to use Pi. Now, if you want to do USB, it's the same exact way because this config is actually considering that Picam as a USB cam now. So there's no really mystery in the Picam. It's going to work the same way no matter what you plug in. Just make sure you go into the log, get the attributes correct, and you'll be good to go. Hope this helps.